Okay, so we're going to go through two examples out of the book. We're going to walk completely from prep to stage 4 for two different problems. And the first problem we're going to do comes from question number 20 at the back of the chapter, part C. This would be on page 368. The question is a more complex question that's multi-parts and referencing other problems, and we're not going to worry about any of that right now. You can look at that on your own. We're just going to run the problem. So, it doesn't really have much of a story setup that we need to worry about. Our data is right here, and it tells us in part C to run the ANOVA with a 0.05 to determine whether there are any significant differences amongst the three treatment means. And so again, that's what we're looking at, even though we're not using the means. We're asking, are there mean differences and are they significant? So the first thing we need to do, as we know, is our prep stage. Again, we need to take an inventory. What do we have versus what do we need? So if we look at all that data presented for problem number 20, we can see we've got the sample sizes are 6 in each group. They're all the same, happen to be. We've got the sample means, which we know we don't really necessarily need, but it's there. Sums of squares values for all three groups is given to us. 120, 130, and 80 for that final group. We've got the value for capital N. We know there are a total of 18 scores, 6 plus 6 plus 6. Our grand total, 54. And our summation of squared raw scores is 576. So as we look at that, go back in your notes and look at the prep list, the checklist. What are all the things we've got to have? And we see that there's two things from the prep list that are not given to us here. You might want to pause and look to see, pause the video and see if you can't figure it out on yourself, on your own first. But there are two things missing. One thing missing is the value of K. K, what's the value of K? How many treatment conditions are there? And they're numbered for us. Treatment condition 1, 2, and 3. The value of K is 3. Now here's an aside pop quiz question. How many factors are there? 1. Remember, we're only ever doing single factor. That answer is always going to be 1 in this chapter. But there's one treatment, one factor, but there's 3 versions of it. We don't know what those 3 things are, but that's what that is. And the other thing that's not given to us there directly are our treatment totals. We don't have the raw scores to add up. And we know that's how you get treatment totals. So we need to know the treatment total for group 1. We need to know the treatment total for group 2. And we need to know the treatment total for condition 3, for the third sample. Well, it doesn't give us the raw scores. Normally, we would just go into the column of scores and add up that column and go, oh, that's our treatment total. But it did give us something we can use, those sample means. Let's think about the formula for a sample mean for a second. Sample mean is the summation of raw scores divided by the number of raw scores. Well, look at treatment condition number 1. It tells you that the mean is 1 point. The summation of raw scores is what the treatment total would be. And we know the number of scores in there was 6. So this is another example of a problem where you've been given everything you need. You just have to figure out how do I sometimes deconstruct and reconstruct to get what I need out of it. So we can see through cross-multiplying here that our treatment total for the first condition is going to be 6 points. And then we can do the same thing for the second group and for the third group. The second group has a mean of 2 points with 6 scores. So their treatment total will work out to be 12. And lastly, treatment condition 3. Again, we know that there's a mean there of 6 points with 6 raw scores. So that's going to work out to be 36. So those are our 3 things that we need in our preparation stage that are not expressly given to us in the problem we had to determine for ourselves. Again, this is also the stage where I might go make my results decision table. You don't necessarily have to do it in advance. You can wait to step 3 to make it. It's really kind of a personal choice. I kind of like to take the time of drawing all the little boxes first and just get it out of the way, but it's entirely up to you. All right, so that part is done. Now let's move on to the actual step one. We already know what this is going to be. There's only one set of answers that can be correct here. So, alternate hypothesis is at least one treated population mean will be different than another, or different from another, kind of doesn't matter there. And the null hypothesis, treated population mean 1 will equal treated population mean 2 will equal treated population mean 3. Now just a quick note on scoring here for your quizzes and exams. Either find the mu symbol to put in there or type the words treated population mean. At this point moving forward, if you type a capital M there, that's the wrong symbol. You cannot use that to substitute. So you either need the correct symbol or replace it with the English equivalent. But don't put M's on that. That will no longer get you credit. I've been lenient with that because we're all sort of learning and adjusting, but we should be able to either figure that out or just skip it one way or the other now. So that's step one. That is all we can do for step one. Step two. We know that we can't really do fully step two. So all we can do is set up a space on our page for it. So we know from the problem that the alpha level is 0.05. We're going to need to know what the degrees of freedom between treatments is. We're going to need to know what the degrees of freedom within treatments is. We can put all that together to get our critical F. So we can set this space up for when we're ready to do it, but we don't have the answers yet to do any of that. Again, I strongly recommend that you don't jump back and forth. Sooner or later, it will cause a problem for almost everybody. It's just a kind of a sloppy way of approaching it. So for step two, I would prepare my space and then leave it and go straight on to step three. Because of how long step three is going to take, we're going to have to break this problem into two different video parts. So I'm going to cut the video here and we'll pick up with step three in the next section.